Om Adnyanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome back to Wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. As I was mentioning earlier, we are on now chapter 6. So in 2-3 weeks we'll be completing chapter 6, and that means we would have completed 1/3 of Bhagavad Gita. And today we will start chapter 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga. So Dhyana. So Lord Shri Krishna has spoken about Dhyana towards the end of chapter 5. And he has also spoken about Dhyana in chapter 4 when he was talking about various different kinds of sacrifices. So now that he has spoken about in 4th chapter as well as 5th chapter towards end, he's going to elaborate on this Ashtanga Yoga process or Dhyana Yoga process in chapter 6. But even before he starts explaining about Dhyana Yoga, he will again explain about Nishkam Karma Yoga. And someone will think, why he's again explaining Nishkam Karma Yoga? He has already explained that in chapter 3, chapter 2 as well, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 5. In chapter 4 as well, he talked about it a little bit here and there. But why again he's talking about here? For obvious reason, because he knows that as soon as he talks about Ashtanga Yoga, where at an advanced stage you can give up work, Arjuna will ask, hey, again you are talking about giving up work, and on the other side you are asking me to work. So to avoid that confusion, he's saying that I'm going to talk about Ashtanga Yoga, but remember, we have to do Nishkam Karma Yoga. And then towards the end of the 6th chapter, he will change the gear to Bhakti Yoga. And that is when, for the next 6th chapter, from chapter 7 to chapter 12, he'll mainly talk about Bhakti Yoga. And then, actually, from beginning to end of Bhagavad Gita, he gives a glimpse of Bhakti Yoga here and there. But in 7 to 12, he will focus on it mainly. But after chapter 13 as well, he will talk about Bhakti Yoga. So this chapter has 47 verses. So it's like a medium-sized chapter. And we will try to complete that in either 3 or 4 sessions. We will see. Okay, so let us start with the first verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashritah karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. Who wants to read the translation? Yes, Pamindra Prabhuji, please go ahead. And
Hare
then
Krishna,
Vidushi Mataji, you can do the next one.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruit of his work and who work as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. He is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and perform no duty.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. So here he's talking about who is a perfect sannyasi or a yogi. Who is a perfect sannyasi or and a yogi. So what is mentioned? One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated. As he is obligated means he is working as duty. So he is not attached to the fruits of his work and he is working as duty. So which process is that? That's Nishkam Karma Yoga. We have seen that many times before. So such a person is in renounced order of life. So such a person is a sannyasi. And he is a true mystic. So that such a person is also a yogi. So who's a true yogi or a sannyasi? That the one who is working as if he's working as a matter of duty, and he's not attached to the fruits of activities. And he's saying not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So it is not that a perfect sannyasi and a yogi is that one who has given up all the work. So Lord Shri Krishna is emphasizing again in the first verse itself that who is a perfect sannyasi and yogi. So perfect sannyasi is not that one who has given up all the work, but he who has given up the attachment to the work. So what is the criteria? Work is he is unattached to the fruits. He is working, he is doing the work as duty, and not the one who has given up the work. And Srila Prabhupada and his, actually that is one other point. Even though the chapter talks about Ashtanga Yoga, um, Srila Prabhupada throughout this chapter in the purports focuses on Bhakti Yoga. And during the chapter as well, Arjuna, towards the end of the chapter, he starts saying that, oh, it looks very difficult to do. So I don't think that it is possible for me to do it. So he rejects this process over a period of time in this chapter. And that is why, knowing this, that it is very hard to do for all of us in Kali Yuga, Srila Prabhupada from the first words itself in the purport, he will focus on how Bhakti Yoga is the best for Kali Yuga and how we should continue doing Bhakti Yoga. So Srila Prabhupada refers to in purport that real sannyasa and real yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna without self-interest. So real sannyas and real yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness. And you can see that this criteria which is given above is automatically fulfilled. When you work in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna, then you're unattached to fruit because you are actually doing it for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. So you're not actually doing it for your own sense enjoyment. And to work as he is obligated. In fact, you are going further in Krishna consciousness. You are doing the work because it is for the pleasure of Krishna. So it is not even at the level of duty, but it is at the level of love. So you are going even beyond this criteria, and you are not giving up the work, and you are using your body, your senses, your mind, your intelligence, everything in Krishna's service. So you can see that if you work in Krishna consciousness, automatically a person is perfect sannyasi and a perfect yogi. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here. So a perfect sannyasi or a yogi is not the one who has given up the work, but the one who has given up the attachment to the fruit of work. So again, this is important to understand that the Lord is trying to tell us repeatedly in this first section of first 6 chapters that uh, when he's talking about yoga, he's not asking you to give up the work. He's saying you keep doing the work. What is problematic when we are doing the work is that we are doing it for our own sense enjoyment. We are attached to the fruits that we are going to receive. But the Lord is saying you give up the attachment to this fruit of work. You will still get the fruits. It is not that when we are giving up the attachment to the fruit of work, you are also giving up the fruits itself. What it means is when you are giving up the attachment to fruit, whether you get the desired fruit or not, you keep doing the activity. So your work does not depend on whether you are going to whether you are going to get a favorable result or not. You will still do your duty. So that is what the Lord is saying. Because the whole point of starting to speak Bhagavad Gita is when Arjuna saw his relatives in front of him, as a Kshatriya, his duty was to fight and establish the principles of religion. Because the Kshatriya are supposed to actually uh, have the law and order, and especially uh, the saintly kings, they are supposed to actually rule as per dharma. So they have to establish dharma. But when he saw on the opposite side, his relatives are there, he thought of giving up that duty. So when he saw some unfavorable situation for him, he was going to give up the activity itself. So Lord Krishna has been repeatedly saying that you should do your work and we should not be attached to the fruit of work. And that is the purpose of him explaining this Nishkam Karma Yoga, to ask Arjuna to actually go to the higher level and keep doing the work. Sudharma Mataji, you have a question or a comment?
Question, Prabhuji. Hare
Yes,
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, when here he says, not he who lights no fire. Is he talking about karma kandis?
No, fire generally, when they talk about duty in the Vedic sense, they talk about all the yajnas that they do. So they have to light the fire. So it is not that the sannyasi who has given up doing yajna. So, so here Lord is saying that you're not a sannyasi just because you have given up doing the yajnas.
Okay.
So basically, you have given up doing your prescribed duty. That is why you're a sannyasi. No, he's saying that a sannyasi is the one, even if you're doing the activity, if you have given up the attachment to the fruits, you are still a sannyasi, you are still a yogi.
So understanding is you keep continuing the sacrifices or yajnas, but without expecting any result from it.
Yeah, to give up the attachment to the result, yes.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So it is not only yajna, it is just any prescribed duty that you have to do.
Okay.
So a Kshatriya has his own prescribed duty, a Brahmana has his own prescribed duty, and the Vaishyas and Shudras will have their own prescribed duties. So they have to actually keep doing their prescribed duty without having the attachment to the fruits. And
Thank
then
you.
they are still sannyasis, they are still yogis.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
All right. So we'll look at the second verse. यम संन्यासम इति प्राहुर्योगम तम विद्धि पांडवा यह संन्यस्यस्त संकल्पो योगी भवति कश्चन. Vidushi Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Oh, Uma Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification.
Thank you, Mataji. This is a very interesting verse. Again, here the renunciation and yoga, they have been equated. So what the Lord is saying, what is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga. So he's saying sannyasa and yoga are same. And yoga is linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So the Lord is saying we cannot become a yogi without renouncing the desire for sense gratification. And if you are renouncing the desire for sense gratification, that is sannyasi. Because what sannyasi is doing? A sannyasi is giving up the material activities so that he can take up the spiritual activities. And what is yogi doing? Yogi is trying to connect to the Supreme Lord. So when we are trying to connect to the Supreme Lord, that means you are already starting the spiritual activities. And by gaining the higher taste in the yoga system and all the yogic, the spiritual activities, you give up the material activities. So in both sannyasa, if you're doing the sannyasa properly, you give up the material activities first so that you have time and you have your mind and everything is engaged in the spiritual activities. So the end state of a sannyasi is that he has given up the material activities and he's doing all the spiritual activities. And what is yoga? You actually connect yourself to the Supreme. That means you have taken up the spiritual activities. And because of that, by continuously doing that, you get purified of your material desires and you give up the material activities over a period of time. And that way, the end state is same. So that means renunciation and yoga are exactly same. So that is what the Lord has mentioned here. That renunciation is equal to yoga, which is equal to renunciation of sense gratification. And all of that requires a controlled mind. If you want to if you want to give up the sense gratification, then you have to have a controlled mind. And Krishna will explain, Lord Shri Krishna will explain how to control the mind using the Ashtanga Yoga process in this chapter, which Arjuna says is very, very hard to do. Tripti Mataji, you have a question?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question related to the first, before when you were reciting the first para, you mentioned that Prabhuji has not talked about Ashtanga Yoga in detail, and so I wanted to know, is this the same Ashtanga Yoga which is prophesized in real, like they have the 16 limbs movement you do? Is it the same what is in the real Gita, or yeah, so I'm a bit confused. Either we are using the same word, or is it the different
Good
word?
question. Good question. I should have actually started this chapter with this slide, but somehow or the other I directly jumped on first words. I wanted to actually get into it. So it's a good point. So I'll explain very briefly about Ashtanga Yoga here, and then we will get into it. And it is not that Srila Prabhupada hasn't talked about Ashtanga Yoga at all. He is explaining Ashtanga Yoga in this chapter, as the Lord is explaining, but he's emphasizing that how it is difficult for all of us to do it in Kali Yuga in this day and age. So it is always best for us to do Harinam. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama eva kevalam, Kalau nastaiva 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 gatiranyatya. In this Kali Yuga, there is no better way than to chant the holy name of the Lord. Okay, so coming to the Ashtanga Yoga, what is Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga? So this Ashtanga Yoga process is referred to by many people with different names. So it is called Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Sometimes this asana part, which is the third limb, is also called Hatha Yoga. So many different names are people refer to it. So Ashtanga means there are 8 limbs or 8 steps which are there in this yoga system. And generally this when people say I'm doing yoga or I'm going to yoga classes, it is just one of the limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga process, which is the asana step. So it is a step-by-step process, Ashtanga Yoga process. The first limb is called Yama. Yama means what is prohibited. So Yama, the second one is Niyama. Niyama means what is the prescribed things. So prescriptions and proscriptions, or prohibitions and injunctions, basically do's and don'ts. Niyama means what you should all regularly do. And Yama means what you should not do. So as you can see, the Ashtanga Yoga process, even before it goes to asana, which is the third step, it emphasizes on Yama and Niyama. But most of the yoga classes that you go to, where they teach this Ashtanga Yoga process, hardly anyone talks about Yama and Niyama. So obviously, if you do not follow the do's and don'ts, if it is like step-by-step process, if you do not follow the do's and don'ts, then of course you will not get the all the benefits of asana, pranayam, and forget about going to pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, samadhi. So first thing first, if you want to actually strictly follow Ashtanga Yoga process and make progress, you have to see Yama and Niyama. And some of the Yama Niyama, it is of course not in very detail, but some Yama Niyama the Lord talks about in the verses that possibly we'll cover today. So Yama and Niyama are important, do's and don'ts. Once you start following that properly, then the next step is asana. Asana are postures. Now these postures are very, very useful for having good health. So for good health, you can do asana. Once you master asanas, then you can go to pranayam. Pranayam are breathing exercises. And our breathing has a good connection with our mind. So the idea of pranayam is to actually slow down your breathing. And with that slowing down your breathing, not only you have longer life, but also you have calm mind. As we have just seen, for detachment from sense gratification, giving up the sense enjoyment, you have to have stronger mind or the controlled mind. So Ashtanga Yoga process is actually giving this mechanical process to help us in controlling our mind. So you do Yama Niyama, then you do asana so that you can have good health. Then you do pranayam so that you can actually have longer life, as well as you can have controlled mind or peaceful mind. Once you actually do all these first 4, then the important steps in Ashtanga Yoga they are starting. So these are all postures, or these are just beginning. For example, in cricket, sometimes the batsman, when the bowler is starting to bowl, the batsman is actually going there and he's taking a stance. And sometimes people even, like the batsman, even lift the bat and they are ready to hit the ball. So that's a posture that they have taken, right? So all of that posture is for the purpose that when the ball comes, they want to hit it. So that is the whole purpose. Similarly, in Ashtanga Yoga, the first 4 steps are like posture. And the whole point of having this good health and the longer life, the controlled mind, is so that you can do this pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But most of the people who are actually are learning yogasanas, they are not worried about, or they are not even thinking about doing pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. They are just thinking that, oh, I want good health and I want just uh, some breathing exercise I can do so that I can have longer life. It is like the batsman saying that I will just have the bat raised, but I will not worry about hitting the ball. So let the ball come, I will keep my bat raised only. So what will happen if you do like that? If your bat is raised and the ball comes and you don't actually move your bat, then your stumps will be gone. So that is the point, that Ashtanga Yoga, the whole point of doing all of these things is this last 3 steps, even dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. That is where the meditation is. Okay, so if a good Ashtanga yogi has done yama, niyama, asana, and pranayam, then he comes to the step of pratyahara. Pratyahara is, now your mind is little bit controlled by using this pranayam. So you actually practice withdrawing your senses from the sense objects. And it is difficult to do when your senses are always in touch with the sense objects. So that is why this Ashtanga yogi may actually go in seclusion so that uh, he can take himself away from all the sense objects, which will keep tempting him. And then he will start doing dharana. Dharana is the beginning of meditation. The dhyana is like intermediate level of meditation, and samadhi is the full absorption or the highest perfect level of meditation. And this is the goal of Ashtanga yogi. They are meditating on the Supreme Lord who's in their heart in the form of Paramatma. So they are doing this dharana, dhyana, and samadhi on this Paramatma. And in the full absorption state, they can actually take darshan of the Paramatma. So this is the process of Ashtanga Yoga. So these are the 8 limbs. And the whole point of doing all of that is to have this full absorption or samadhi in Krishna. Is that okay? Okay, all right. So we'll continue. So this is in a very high level what is Ashtanga Yoga is. And we'll see some of these as the chapter goes advances. We will see what are the yamas, niyamas, and not a lot of asanas will be mentioned, but it will mention like how you have to sit erectly, and then how you have to do the breathing exercises, and then how you progress into your meditation. All of that we'll see. Okay, so we have seen renunciation. In the second verse, we have seen renunciation and yoga are same, because in yoga as well, you are renouncing the sense gratification, and it requires controlled mind. So the practical understanding that we can get is that yoga process requires a controlled mind. So all processes of yoga, whether it is Nishkam Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, you will require your mind to be controlled. But there are different ways which are mentioned for controlling the mind. Like in here, in the Ashtanga Yoga process, the process of pranayam has been mentioned for steadying your mind. But in Bhakti Yoga process, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra has been given for controlling the mind. So mantra is, the word mantra itself means manatrayate iti mantra. So the sound vibration which liberates the mind from all the anxieties is a mantra. So different processes have given different ways of controlling the mind, but all processes requires control over our mind. It is not that you can just do bhakti yoga without a controlled mind. We can start it, but over a period of time, to make progress, we have to control our mind. And that is why it is recommended that we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. And Krishna will actually also recommend that little later in this chapter itself about how we can control the mind. So we'll go there in the second or third session. Okay, so let us go to now the third verse. Arurukshormunir karma karanamuchyate yogarudhasya tassaiva shama karanamuchyate. Who wants to read? Yes, Surananda Prabhu, and then Vibhor Prabhu, you can do the next one.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
For
Krishna.
one who is a neophyte, in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So here in this verse, Lord Shri Krishna is explaining about this yoga process as like a ladder. And he's saying that at the beginning stage, it is called Aruruksha stage. And the advanced stage is called Arudha stage. Yoga Aruruksha and Yoga Arudha. So this is how he is classifying it. And at the beginning stage, you have to follow Nishkam Karma Yoga. So he's saying that Aruruksha stage is a neophyte stage, a newbie stage, and you have to keep doing work in a Nishkam way, that you do the work but not be attached to the result of the work. And for Ashtanga Yoga, like the first 4 stages, you can say that they are in Aruruksha stage. Whereas Arudha stage is an advanced, elevated stage. And you can give up the activities like in Dharana Dhyana stage. Either at a Dharana or Dhyana stage, you can give up the activities. And for Ashtanga Yoga, Arudha stage means like top 4 stages, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. And the more you go higher, like Dharana, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi, you are on the higher and higher elevated platform in the yoga system, an Ashtanga Yoga system. So it is, even if someone is doing Ashtanga Yoga, in the beginning, they have to do their work. They cannot give up their work because their mind is not controlled. And when their mind becomes more and more controlled, especially when they go to dharana or even further in dhyana stage, where their mind is quite concentrated, quite controlled, at that level, they can think of giving up their material work and the prescribed duties, and then full time they can actually focus on meditation and then samadhi. So this is like a ladder kind. The Lord is comparing this process like a ladder and giving at different stages. So in now the next few verses, actually the fourth verse, he explains about some qualities of the higher stage, Yoga Rudha stage. So let us look at that verse. यदा हीनेन्द्रियार्थेषु न कर्मस्व अनुषज्यते सर्वसंकल्पसन्न्यासी योगारूढस्तदोच्यते. Yes, Vibhor Prabhuji, please go.
A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all the material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. So in Yoga Rudha stage, what is the consciousness of this person, and what are the activities? So it is mentioned here, the 3 things are there at Yoga Rudha stage, how it is defined. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when he has having renounced all material desires. So he's not desiring any sense gratification. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So he neither engages in sense gratification nor he is engaged in fruitive activities. Now, sometimes we may think that sense gratification activities and fruitive activities are similar, but actually there is a little bit different meaning to it. Now, you are not engaged in sense gratification. That means this person is not interested in current enjoyment. They are not doing some activity for their current enjoyment. Fruitive activities are generally done in the Vedas, the Karma Kanda activities, where you are doing some activity now so that you can enjoy in future, either in this life later on, or in the next life. You can go to heavenly planet or whatever. So this person who's at yoga Ruda stage, he's completely have controlled mind and he has no desire for sense enjoyment. So he's not engaged in sense gratification, so no current enjoyment, not engaged in fruitive activities, he's not interested in the future enjoyment, and he's not even desiring sense gratification. That means internally as well, he's detached. So externally detached, internally detached. So such a person is at Yoga Ruda stage. So that has been mentioned here. Parminder Prabhuji, you have a question or a comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, one question, like when we are saying that we have renounced or like everything, or like we have given up all of these things, is it like similar to one prasthan?
Vanaprastha and sannyasa. So here, Ashtanga Yogi, we will see how he has to actually do the Ashtanga Yoga process. You can't sit in your comfortable home in Poruruva Prabhuji and do Ashtanga Yoga process, unfortunately. So they actually have to go to a secluded place when they are at the advanced stage of Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. They have to actually give up the association of people and they go to some secluded place like Himalaya or some other place, and then they actually continue their process. And that is why it is mentioned that for ordinary people who are householders or even in Kali Yuga, hardly anyone can do Ashtanga Yoga process successfully. There will possibly still some people who may be able to do, but ordinary people in current day and age, it is very hard to do for them, Prabhuji. Okay. And we will see some of the rules and regulations, they are coming in next few verses. So all of this that is mentioned, Yoga Ruda stage that is mentioned, and Yoga Aruksha stage which is mentioned. So what is the difference? Like what differentiates the Yoga Ruda stage from the Yoga Aruksha stage? Is the mind. So the yogi whose mind is controlled is at the Yoga Ruda stage. And the person or the yogi whose mind is not yet controlled is in the Aruruksha stage. And that is what is mentioned in this next two verses, verse number 5 and 6. So we'll read them together and then we will discuss about them. And they are very wonderful verses. So we'll read them now. Uddharet atma atmanam natmanam avasadayed atmaiva hyatmano bandhur atmaiva ripur atmanaha. Very melodic, very nice verse. Yes, Raghavendra Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Oh, Mataji, yes, please go ahead.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
Very wonderful. Let's read the next one as well, and then we will discuss these two verses together. Bandhur atma atmanastasya yenatmaiva atmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartitatmaiva shatruvat. Who wants to read? Yes, Shanti Mataji, please go.
For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
Yeah, thank you. So both of these verses in together, they are explaining how the mind becomes our friend or how it becomes an enemy. Verse number 5 is saying, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind. So we can actually use our mind to deliver ourselves. and not degrade. So that means the mind has the capability to liberate us or degrade us as well. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So it can be a friend and enemy. And the sixth verse is explaining when it becomes friend and when it acts as an enemy. So one who has conquered the mind is the best of the friend for that person. But for one who has failed to do so, that means the mind is controlling him, then the mind will become the greatest of enemy. So very, very important, even for the devotees who are not following Ashtanga Yoga process, these two verses are very important. We can actually use them in our day-to-day life. So when the mind becomes friend, when it is controlled, it follows the dictation of the super soul and it is detached from sense gratification. And if the mind is like that, it will elevate us. But it will become our enemy if it is uncontrolled. And it follows the dictation of lust, anger, illusion, etc. Because if the mind is controlling us, mind is full of passion and ignorance. These modes are there. And of course, some goodness will also be there. So goodness, passion, and ignorance will be there. And from passion and ignorance, we are having all these anarthas which are there in our heart, which is lust, anger, greed, illusion, everything. So when we are saying that the mind is controlling us, that means all of these which are inside the mind, which is lust, anger, illusion, greed, all of these are controlling us. And in that situation, we'll be attached to sense gratification. And the result is always be that we are getting degraded and we are getting entangled in this karmic activities. And we will take next, again, another birth. We'll go through the cycle of birth, old age, death, and deceit. So we want our mind to become our friend and not our enemy. So how can we do it? And whether it is easy to do it or very difficult to do it. So that is what then Arjuna little later when asked Lord Shri Krishna. So it is possible to control our mind. And it is a very simple formula that Lord Shri Krishna has given. And we will see that how in Bhakti Yoga that formula can be applied for making mind our friend. So remember, mind can be our friend, can be our enemy as well. And if we are controlling the mind, then it is our friend. If the mind is controlling us, then it is our enemy. So this point we should remember at this point. Yeah, the same points are mentioned as our practical takeaway. When the mind is controlled, it will follow the dictation of the super soul and elevate us. And such a mind is our friend. And at the same time, when the mind is uncontrolled, it will follow the dictation of lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, pride, jealousy, and thus it will degrade us. Such a mind is our enemy. So we should remember this. Shanti Mataji, you have some question or comment? No, okay. So it is
Sorry,
just,
Mata.
no, it
Yes.
was just raised for your, okay, fine. All right. So again, the Krishna is now talking about the symptoms of the Yoga Ruda stage in the next few verses, 7, 8, and 9. So he started talking about that in the previous verse. And then he explained that how the mind of the Yoga Ruda person is his friend. But for the others, where the mind is controlling them, it is their enemy. But he will continue to talk about the Yoga Ruda person. What are the symptoms of such a person? So we'll go to verse number 7. Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manapamanayoho. Who wants to read? Yes. Yeah, Tripti Mataji, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. For he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. So here, some of the symptoms of a Yoga Ruda person are mentioned. And this verse is talking about how this person is completely neutral to all the dualities. So it is mentioned that he is he is equal in happiness and distress. First of all, it is mentioned happiness and distress, heat and cold is mentioned, and honor and dishonor are mentioned. So these three things are at three different levels. So heat and cold is at the level of body. So bodily discomforts doesn't matter to this person. Whether it is heat or cold, he will do his required things. He will not give up the activity just because it is hot today or it is cold today. So irrespective of heat or cold, it doesn't matter. They will just they are beyond the bodily discomforts, basically. Then the next thing which is mentioned is happiness and distress. So they are equipoised in happiness and distress as well. So happiness and distress comes from the mind. So heat and cold was at the level of body. Happiness and distress is at the level of mind. So they were just like they were equipoised in the bodily discomforts, they are also equipoised in the discomforts of the mind. It doesn't matter to them who gets the fruits or the result of work. So if they get it, it is not that they are very happy, and if they don't get it, they are very distressed, or depending on whether they are going to get it or not, they are going to do their activities or not. So they are beyond this, beyond the discomforts of the mind as well. And then it is mentioned honor and dishonor as well. So honor and dishonor is at the level of the ego, so false ego. So they are beyond the discomforts of the false ego as well. Because some people are able to tolerate the heat and cold. Sometimes people are even able to tolerate the discomfort of the mind, which is unhappiness and distress. But at the level of ego, honor and dishonor is very, very hard for them to tolerate. But the person who's at the yoga ruda stage, they can tolerate the discomforts of the false ego as well. It doesn't matter to them who gets the credit. So if they have done something wonderful and someone else also takes the credit, so they don't get the honor for that, it's okay for them, because they are not doing it for honor, they are not doing it for the fruits, and they are not even doing for any sense gratification for the body. So they are completely beyond these levels. So they are completely neutral to these dualities. The next verse goes even one step further. Okay, let us look at the next verse. ज्ञान विज्ञान तृप्तात्मा कुटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्ट्राश्म कांचनः. Sudharma Mataji, you have been raising your hand. Was that for reading or you had?
No, reading, Prabhuji.
Okay, you can do, and Mahendra Prabhuji, you can do the next one.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it is pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. So this person who's at the yoga ruda stage, he doesn't only have theoretical knowledge. He has theoretical knowledge, but he also has realized knowledge. His jnana vijnana triptatma. So jnana is knowledge, and vijnana means realized knowledge. So he has practically implemented that knowledge in his day-to-day life, and from that he has got the realizations of what he's talking about. So that is why he's a jnana vijnana triptatma. And he's not actually interested in material objects at all. And the material objects, like what are the objects mentioned? Pebbles, stones, or gold. They are same for him. Imagine a person who's treating gold and stones as same. How detached he is from the material things. Because from his perspective, he's not interested in any material objects. So for him, if there is a 1 kg gold or 1 kg stone, he's thinking, oh, this is useless to me. They are all both same. And the next verse goes even further. Let us look at the next verse. Surhun mitrar yudasina yuda surhur mitrar yudasina madhyastha dvesha bandhushu sadhushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. Mahendra Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So in the previous verse, we saw that he's treating all the objects equally. This verse is talking about he's treating all people equally. Now, treating object equally is difficult, like gold and stone. Treating them equally is difficult. But as compared to people, treating people equally, it is still easy. But here, it is talked about that this person also treats everyone equally. And what kind of people? Suvrut. Suvrut means he's a well-wisher of this person. Mitra. Mitra is like a benefactor. Then Ari means like an enemy or even a killer. Then Udasina. Udasina means he's a neutral person. Or Madhyastha. Madhyastha means he's an impartial judge. He's concerned about both the sides, but he is impartial judge. Dvesha. Dvesha means the person who is envious. And Bandhu. Bandhu means he's a relative or a well-wisher. So all of these people he will treat equally. Whether he's a very good friend, very like a enemy or a neutral person, he is able to see them equally. With an equal mind, he's able to see. So he has a very, very controlled mind. So this is the Yoga Ruda stage, and it's a very, very advanced stage, because at that level you're not actually are at the material platform at all. Anything that is material, you're not, it doesn't matter to you. That is why the gold and stones can be considered equally. Then the discomforts of body, mind, and the ego, false ego, can also be ignored. And also the emotions towards different people, they are also ignored by this person. And this is Ashtanga yoga process, by the way. And in Bhakti Yoga process, you don't have to do any of these. You can use your gold in Krishna's service. You can use any stones in Krishna's service, and you can talk to these various Suvrut, Mitra, Udasina, Madhyastha, or Bandhu people, and ask them to be Krishna's devotees. Dvesh, the people who are envious, you can stay a little away from them, and if they are Ari, enemy, you can be away from them. Like that, you can, whatever is favorable for Krishna's service, you can utilize, and whatever is unfavorable for Krishna's service, you can detach. But in Ashtanga yoga process, this yoga ruda person, advanced person, he's explained here. Let us go forward, where now it is mentioned how the practice is done at the yoga ruda stage. Time, we still have time. Good. योगी युञ्जीत सततम् आत्मानं रहसि स्थितः एकाकी यतचित्तात्मा निराशीर अपरिग्रहः. Who wants to read?
Hare Krishna,
Yes,
Prabhu,
Pamindra
can I
Prabhu.
read?
Next one you can read, Mataji. Asoka Mataji. Pamindra Prabhu, you can read this.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. A translator should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness.
Thank you, Prabhu. So the practice of this yoga ruda person is mentioned. So as you can see, some of these points which are mentioned here, how he is practicing. Nirashi. Nirashi means completely free of material desires. So he doesn't have any asha or the material desires. He's Nirashi. Then aparigraha, completely free from possessiveness. So he doesn't accumulate. That means all the grahasthas are barred from this, because the grahasthas will have so many accumulations, so many possessions, so many material desires as well will be there. So it is very difficult. Then ekaki, alone he will do. He can't be amongst all the people to do this yoga rude stage, like the dharana, dhyana, and samadhi of Ashtanga yoga, cannot be done while staying amongst a lot of people. You do it ekaki, alone. Rahasi, in a secluded place. So it is not that you are going to a place like a secluded place, but you are going with a lot of people. You are going ekaki, alone. Like even the disciples are, if such like is an advanced person, he may have some disciples. It is not that he's going to the secluded place with all his disciples. He's going alone there for his own practice. And Satatam Atmanam engages his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. So he's always trying to concentrate and the mind on the Supreme Lord. And he's trying to go towards the Samadhi stage. So now from here, like 11th and 12th verse, it is mentioned how he should sit for the meditation. So some rules and regulations, some yama and niyama can be visible here and in the next few verses. Let us look at them. 11 and 12. शुचौ देशे प्रतिष्ठाप्य स्थिरम् आसनम् आत्मनः नात्युच्छित्रं नातिनीचं शैलाजिनकुशोत्तरं तत्रैकाग्रं मनः कृत्वा यतचित्तेन्द्रियक्रियः उपविश्यासने युञ्जाद् योगम् आत्मविशुद्धये. Ashoka Mataji, you can read the translation. You're on mute. You're still on mute, Mataji.
Yeah.
Yes, now you can read.
Krishna
Yeah.
Prabhu. To practice yoga, and one should go to a scheduled place and should tie kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high or not too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So it is mentioned how he should sit. So many things, points are mentioned about how a yogi should be sitting and doing his concentration or his dhyana. So first of all, as mentioned in the previous verse, again it is repeated, he has to go to a secluded place. And if possible, that secluded place can be a sacred place, like some place of pilgrimage, like you are going to Vrindavan or to Mayapur or to Puri or to Himalayas or to some places like Prayag, where some yogis are going, or go to some secluded pilgrimage place, basically. Then lay kusha grass on the ground. So the kusha grass are used by the yogis. On top of that, cover it with deer skin and soft cloth. Deer skin is generally used because Srila Prabhupada was mentioning in other lectures that if you're sitting on a deer skin, then the reptiles or snakes do not actually come near you. So that is why now if you're trying to sit there, close your eyes in a jungle, you should not be worried about a snake is coming or some reptiles are coming towards you. So you sit on a deer skin so that you are free from that anxiety. And you put a soft cloth on it, and then the seat should not be too high or too low. And you have to sit firmly. You can't just keep moving like this or back and forth or side to side, anything like that. You have to sit firmly, sit erect, and fixing the mind on one point, generally on the tip of your nose, that they have to fix their mind. I think it will be talked about in the next verse. So now it is explained how a yogi should meditate in the next two verses, and then we'll stop. Samam kaya shiro grivam yananchalam stiraha sampreksha snasikagram swam dishashchanavalokayan prashantatma vikatabhir brahmachari vrate stitaha manah संयम्य मच्चित्तो yukta asita matparaha. Who wants to read the last two? Tripti Mataji, you have a question or you want to read?
Oh, I was going to read.
Okay,
Prabhuji.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you. So here it is mentioned how this yogi should meditate. So you are in a secluded place. You have sat on an asana which is not very high, very low. You have put some kusha grass. You have put some deer skin and some soft cloth on it, and you have sit there steady, not moving here and there. Now you have sat, and now you are thinking about how to meditate. So some rules are mentioned how this person meditates. First of all, body, neck, and head erect in straight line. That itself is so difficult in Kali Yuga. To sit erect for 5 minutes is hard for Kali Yuga, especially those who are sitting in front of computers for 8 hours. It is even harder, like me. You keep moving. Sometimes you have to stand, sometimes you have to sit. But here, this yogi is meditating with body, neck, and head erect in a straight line. And that is how they will sit for hours and hours together. Then stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Their eyes cannot be closed because if it is a secluded place, it is quite peaceful. And if you close your eyes, you may sleep. And if you keep, like, if your eyes are fully open, then you will keep looking at this beautiful scenery around. So they are half open, half closed. And with that half closed eyes and half open eyes, you are actually looking at the tip of your nose. So in the previous verse, it was mentioned that they focus on one point. That one point is the tip of your nose. You're looking like this. You're not looking around you. So stare steadily at the tip of the nose with an unagitated, subdued mind. And that is only possible if you have done the previous stages properly. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayam you have done. Then your mind is a little bit subdued, unagitated. And at that stage, you can think of doing dharana, dhyan, samadhi. Be devoid of fear. Remember, you are in a secluded place, possibly somewhere in the jungle. So you can't be actually thinking every 2 minutes you are looking around here and there that whether you are safe or not. You're devoid of fear. You're fearlessly sitting there thinking that whatever happens, I'm actually just going to meditate and be completely free from sex life. So they follow the brahmacharya vrata. So that is why in Kali Yuga it is hard. Meditate upon the Lord within the heart. And in that way, then they are meditating upon the Paramatma in the heart and make that Paramatma the ultimate goal of life. And even just this little yama and niyama which are given, you can understand that practicing Ashtanga Yoga process properly is extremely difficult, especially in Kali Yuga. And it is not that it is impossible to do, but it is very rarely one can become successful in it. Whereas Bhakti Yoga process, everyone can do it. It is possible for each and every person. A small boy can do it. The old person can do it. Man can do it. Woman can do it. Everyone can do the Bhakti Yoga process. And such stringent rules and regulations are not there in Bhakti Yoga process. And not only it is simple to do, but also it gives the highest level of achievement. So just like the Ashtanga Yoga process is focusing on Paramatma, and at the Samadhi stage, they get the darshan of Paramatma. But in Bhakti Yoga process, you can actually get darshan of the Supreme Lord in the personal form, and you can do service during that the sadhana process as well. So sadhana or the practice in Ashtanga Yoga is quite difficult to do, but in Bhakti Yoga, it is easy to do as well as you reach the goal quicker and you get the highest goal. So that is why Srila Prabhupada is recommending Bhakti Yoga throughout. Okay, we'll pause here. And if there are any questions, comments, reflections, we'll take. Or even if anyone wants to share what was some of the important points that they have noted from today's session. Hare Krishna. Yes, Aparna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, very nice lecture. I could not join from the beginning because I was just driving back from work. I have a question, Prabhuji, as you've explained in such great detail about Ashtanga Yoga through Bhagavad Gita. So I was wondering, Prabhuji, why Lord Krishna has spoken about Ashtanga Yoga before Bhakti Yoga. Like in scheme of things, what could be the logic of the Lord to talk about these things first before getting to the nectar of Bhakti Yoga, Prabhuji?
Yeah, so very good question, Mataji. So actually in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita is mentioned as Yoga Shastra. It is a Shastra where the Lord has talked about various yoga processes. What is yoga? Yoga is actually trying to connect the soul to the Supreme Lord. And to connect the soul to the Supreme Lord, there are various different processes which are possible. So the Karma Yoga, where you are trying to do your activities and try to connect to the Supreme Lord. Jnana Yoga, where you are actually using your mind to speculate various different ways and try to connect to the Supreme Lord through the knowledge process. Then Ashtanga Yoga process, where you are using your body, mind, senses, everything, and mainly the mind is focusing on the Paramatma level, and that is how you are going to connect to the Supreme Lord. And Bhakti Yoga, you use everything that you have, whatever skills, whatever positions you have, you engage your senses in the service of the master of the senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So different processes of connecting to the Supreme Lord are given. And the Lord wants to give all these processes so that different people will have different interests. So most of the people will choose the Bhakti Yoga process. It is easiest to do. But still, there will be some people who would be interested in Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or Karma Yoga. And for them, it should not happen that, oh, I'm not interested in this process, so I will just not do anything. So Lord Shri Krishna is giving all the processes. And then he will also emphasize which is the best, which is the easiest. But some people do not have the simple mind. They have complicated mind and they want something complicated only. So for them, they should not be thinking that, oh, this process is too simple for me. I don't want to do it. So for you, you will be getting some complicated process. And then they will be satisfied. Oh, I have done something. And they will only feel satisfied when there is some stimulation to their mind, stimulation to their something difficult they have done. So they get this satisfaction that I have done this Ashtanga Yoga process or Jnana Yoga process or something. So for them, the Lord has also given this process. Finally, the goal is to actually connect to the Supreme Lord in this way or that way. And that is why all the processes are mentioned. And why he has mentioned the Ashtanga Yoga process before Bhakti Yoga process. So as you can see, he has mentioned about Nishkam Karma Yoga, even Karma Kanda before, then Nishkam Karma Yoga has been mentioned, then Jnana Yoga has been mentioned, Ashtanga Yoga has been mentioned, and then he's going to talk about Bhakti Yoga. So the reason is, I think in the first session we were talking about that it is like the jewel is kept inside a box. So it has a cover on top and a cover at the bottom. So the first 6 chapters talk mainly about Karma Yoga, and 6 chapters talk about Ashtanga Yoga. And then the last 6 chapters talk a lot about various different analytical study. So that generally can be classified into Jnana part. Whereas the middle 6 part talks about Bhakti Yoga. So it is like this sandwich where you have the bread on one side, bread on the other side, and then the patty is inside. So the best part that is reserved inside in the middle. So he talks about other processes, then Bhakti Yoga, then he will continue on the talking about various analytical study and some Jnana part. And then towards the end, again, he will summarize and say that Bhakti Yoga we should do.
Oh, nice. It does make sense, Prabhuji. And I did not know that concept which you just told about how Krishna has given options. Like some people think complicated, so they don't prefer simple solution. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. That was really insightful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, any other reflections, comments, questions? If not, then you can at least mention what are some of the takeaway points from today's session, or summarize the things. Yes,
Hare
Surananda Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So one important point I feel is we wanted to make our mind friend, not an enemy.
Yes, we should all strive to make our mind a friend by controlling the mind and not getting controlled by it. Yes, that's right. Who else has any other points? Aparna Mataji, your hand is still up. You want to share some points, or that is from your previous question? Okay, anyone else wants to share?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, you start from the Bhakti Yoga and then first verse, and you said perfect sannyasi and yogi. And 6.2, you said renunciation and yoga. And then 6.3, and you talk about Aruksha and Aruda. And 6.4, Arurukshaha and Aruda. 6.4, you said talk about yoga root stages of, you defined the stages of yoga root stage. And after that, you just define if mind is friend or our enemy. And then you talk about symptoms of yoga root stage. And then 6.10, practice of yoga root stage. And after that, you verse 11 and 12, you just talk about the how a yogi should sit. So, and after that, you talk about 13, 14, how yogis should be meditate. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else has any other observations? Yes, Mahendra Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. I like that one particular part where I got a little bit clarity around sense gratification and fruitive activities, which you mentioned like a little bit detail, where like sense gratification you mentioned about its current enjoyment, whereas fruitive activities are mainly related to the future enjoyment. It can be like current birth or the upcoming births.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, anyone else has?
Prabhuji, you mentioned
please.
about, yeah, Prabhuji mentioned that a sound vibration that liberates mind from all anxieties is called mantra. And that's the reason Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not a silent meditation. You are mentioned quite a few times. You should have to hear what you are speaking, because that generates the vibration.
Yes, very good. That's the most important point. Okay. If there is nothing else, then we will stop here, and we will continue our chapter 6 from the in the next session as well. Oh, there is a hand up.
So apologies, Prabhuji. That was I was putting a clap in there. Got the hand
Okay.
raised.
All
Thank you,
right.
Prabhuji.
Sudhava
Hare
Mataji, you
Krishna.
have something to share before we close?
Prabhuji, just want to share this main point, like any yoga requires a controlled mind, whether it's
Yes.
a yoga, Ashtanga yoga, or Bhakti yoga.
Yes. So we
And-
require controlled mind, and we may use different process or different ways to control our mind. That's right. Okay. Thank you. We'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad
Jai.
Gita ki jai, Hare
Jai.
Krishna.